What is going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video. And today I've got something new that I wanted to do for a little while, and that is a kind of monthly reads series that will go throughout the year. So today I'm going to be showing off my January monthly reads and just going through what I read over the month of January to kind of keep you posted with what series and content that I'm reading and open some discussions about those. Maybe talking about some things that I wouldn't be planning on making videos on going forward. So just an opportunity to talk about what I'm reading and open discussions with you guys. So the main kind of motivation that I had to do this was that I set myself a personal goal of reading a volume a day throughout the months and see how long I keep that going. So, for example, in January, I wanted to read 31 volumes, 29 going forward into February, and now in March, trying to keep up to date with that just to see if I could, how long I could keep that consistency going of reading a volume a day, or at least ending the month with same amount of volumes read as there are days. It doesn't have to necessarily be an individual volume a day. And the way I kind of see it is that something like Fire Force, for example, that is a 3-in-1, so I consider that 3 days worth of reading 3 original volumes. The same kind of thing with a comic book. If it's an omnibus that comes with 5 trade paperbacks in it, I'll consider that 5 volumes, 5 days worth of reading. So yeah, without further ado, I'll get straight into it with January. So I'll start by quickly going through what I started the month of January off with, as it is a continuation from what I was reading the previous couple months, and that is the long-running Shonen Big Three, and of course that's One Piece. I started off the month a couple volumes into Impel Down and just finished that off, volumes 55 and 56, and then before taking a break from the series, finished off the final pre-New World arc in Paramount War with some absolutely dope covers here. Volume 59, Volume 60, which is pretty much post all the fighting, and then I didn't actually finish but got about halfway through Volume 61, and that is where all the pre-New World stuff happens, and everything from here onwards is New World. So I'm actually going to pick One Piece up back up this month after reading a few comics. So in terms of what I've got to say about it, I am planning to make arc reviews and stuff, so I won't spend too long talking about the series, but it manages to stay intriguing without most of its main cast other than Luffy. These 2 arcs are just absolutely amazing. I would say even from Sabaody forward to Impel Down and then ending with Paramount War as a 3 arc kind of section, it does a really good job of flowing really well, because traditionally over the course of the series up until that point, you can kind of tell when an arc's over, when all the characters and that part of the storyline is kind of done. But the way that these 3 arcs kind of tied together and are tightly knit and just flow one after the other, it's just super effective for me. It's nice to see a kind of difference as the series progresses in the way that the arcs and the story's told. So props to Oda for that. And the fact that it ends with Paramount War, which is such an amazing arc, just full of pure action and adrenaline, is awesome. All the fights in it were really well done, and it's got some of my probably favorite panels over the course of the entire series. So One Piece definitely is going strong. There's a few arcs that I've read so far which I'm not massive on, but I'll talk more about those in the arc reviews. But overall, so far, I've really been enjoying One Piece. It's been a good experience, and one that I recommend for any manga reader if you're happy to kind of commit to that long of a series, because I got to volume 61 and I was like, yeah, definitely need a break now, considering that most series don't even reach this point for their entire run, and volume 60 is just over halfway with what's currently out, even with the series not being finished. So definitely one I'd recommend taking breaks from between arcs, because it could become a bit repetitive and tiresome, but it's One Piece, man. You have to, if you're a fan of anime or manga, you have to experience it in one form or the other. So, and also props to the live action, because that is actually quite good as well. Following on from One Piece, I decided to get into a few comic books that I had unread. I hadn't read comic books in quite a while, and I had a few in my collection that I wanted to get through. So I first started off with The Last of Us American Dreams. Big fan of gaming, so, and also obviously a big fan of The Last of Us series, one a lot more so than two. But this was something that I was looking forward to getting into. A very kind of short, I think only 4 chapter long storyline covering Ellie first meeting I forget her name, Riley. Yeah, Riley. First meeting Riley, and her ties with the leader of the Fireflies who you meet in the first game. However, I've got to say, overall, I wasn't super amazed by this volume. I think the first big thing I've got to cover is the art style. Generally, I'm not opposed to this specific style in isolation, but just with the universe that The Last of Us is and sets up, I just don't think that the art style particularly goes with it. It just took me out of the realism a bit, but that's just my personal opinion. I mean, the art style might be your thing, something that you enjoy. So yeah, but just for me, it took away a little bit from the series. It also felt like it was covering a lot of the same steps, although whilst not being the exact same story, it was covering a lot of the same tracks that the Left Behind DLC does for the game, and I just think in a worse manner, in my personal opinion. Well, I would recommend this for diehard fans of The Last of Us. I wouldn't say that it's necessary reading, or really altogether that enjoyable. It was fine. It was a short read, so you won't be like kind of spending too much time getting invested in it. But obviously, you already know of the characters and stuff, so all of that kind of growth and stuff doesn't really need to be shown in this. But overall, well, I think the premise is cool. I think that just the story it's trying to tell has already been done in a better form through Left Behind, despite not being exactly the same. And the art style was kind of the biggest drawback for me. I just don't think it really fit the Last of Us universe or the story it was trying to tell. I would kind of have preferred maybe something that covers Joel's years after his daughter's death up until the point where you see him at the beginning of the game. I think that could have been something kind of fun to explore, a series doing that. But again, I'm waffling now, but yeah, I would recommend. I would recommend to diehard fans. Other than that, it's one you could skip. Next up, I've got something that I really enjoyed, and that is Harleen. This is the story. I'm just going to take off the slipcover here, which details kind of the descent into madness of Harlequin after meeting the Joker. So I guess she's not Harlequin at the beginning of the series, but yeah, it's just kind of detailing her first interactions with the Joker in Arkham Asylum. And for a comic book that focuses on a superhero villain related story, it's very, very light on the action. It's just more of a kind of psychological expose on the Joker infiltrating Harleen's mind. Whilst that's going on, there's a sub story with Two-Face, which I won't spoil too much. But honestly, this is a definite recommend. If you like anything to do with the world of Batman, his Rogues Gallery, and specifically the Joker and Harlequin, then this is a definite read. It just kind of shows the Joker from both a new light and exactly what we expect from him, doing both of those things at the same time. I just think it's just done really well in this, and I think that it's probably the definitive way to experience an origin story for Harlequin, because it really details the kind of mental struggle she goes through, constantly thinking about the interaction she's had with the Joker, and the way it all kind of ties in together at the end with a bit of action is good as well. So I've got nothing but good things to say about this, so definitely recommend. The penultimate comic I have to show off here is the complete series and the 2 deluxe editions of Gideon Falls. Before that, a few things to complain about. Firstly, I just want to say apologies for the way that I'm kind of showing off the comics. I haven't exactly got the perfect setup to show off these bigger books to get them all in frame and stuff. So that's the first thing. Secondly, I just want to go on a small rant about Amazon's absolute shit packaging of their books. So I got these 2 off Amazon. That first one is in okay condition, but this one has an immense amount of damage in the top corner, and I've had a few issues with Amazon's packaging, and the only positive thing I can say about getting books from Amazon is the fact that you can get them next day, because if not, I'd be getting them from other retailers, just because I know that if they're specifically book retailers, they'll be packaging their books in a way where they won't get damaged like this. Not to mention the fact that it's incredibly difficult to return stuff to Amazon in some cases. So I just found it through the hassle that they were giving me that it wasn't even worth trying to return what was a reasonably expensive hardcover of Gideon Falls. and they wouldn't let me put up my 1-star review complaining about not the actual not the book itself, but the quality of packaging from Amazon. So I'm sure going forward I'll have more things to say about Amazon's packaging of books when I look at other damaged content. But about the series of Gideon Falls itself, I'll just show art from this first volume here. Oh, 1 second. Sorry about that. Yes, I'll just show off art from this. I think that the best thing I can say about this is I just finished Alan Wake 2 before reading this, and this gave me Alan Wake 2 being my game of the year for 2023, and this gave me a massive Alan Wake vibes. So if it gave me vibes of my favorite game of the last year, then that's nothing but a positive. Volume 1 is definitely the better of the two. The build up to the suspense is way better than the actual delivery of the final kind of big reveal and battle. But I think that is probably a universal thing across most kind of supernatural horror things. Most things you hear about complaints in relation to series like this is that the payoff is never as good as how good the setup is. And I think once you've got a solid idea to set up a supernatural horror like this, it's way harder to actually land with the delivery of the thing than it is to build up that suspense. And Gideon Falls has got a very good basis with the main guy who's collecting all the pieces of the barn, as well as seeing the brand new priest in the village. The way that those two series bounce off, the two storylines, bounce off of each other and then connect towards the end of this first volume, I was absolutely hooked. So while the payoff isn't as good, I'd say the series as a whole is still amazing and would be one of my main recommendations from this video, if not my most recommended series, just because it's also a relatively short experience. It's only 2 deluxe editions here, or 6 paperback volumes. And while the actual ending, very last couple pages and last chapter or issue, don't really deliver something that I was super satisfied with, I don't want it to take away from the quality of the series as a whole, which is very, very good series, very high quality, and like I said, just gave me massive Alan Wake vibes as I was reading it. The final comic book I read in my little stint during January was Kieran Gillen's Omnibus Darth Vader run, and this is one that I was looking forward to getting into. Big Star Wars fan, but I haven't really experienced many of the comic books, and I thought this would be a great place to start. I've heard so many good things about his Darth Vader run, so that was the slipcover, and this is what it looks like underneath. Quite impressive until you realise that it's actually just a double page spread from earlier on in the series, so it takes a little bit away from it, but I still prefer a slipcover with art underneath rather than just plain black with the letters on it. So still a fan, and again, this series did not disappoint. It was a very enjoyable experience, kind of seeing the characterization of Darth Vader, seeing kind of him from a perspective where the Emperor's not very happy with him, and him trying to kind of get back into his good books while also pursuing his own personal endeavors over the course of the series, and trying to balance those two things was enjoyable. Seeing the way that he kind of deals with the Aphra situation towards the end of the series, after you think that maybe there's a bit of good in him throughout the course of it, is really cool, just because it kind of warps your mind back into the perspective that while he once was Anakin, he is now Vader, and there is no kind of redeeming him, or so it seems, throughout the book, as well as the fact that the action set pieces, all the art in this is just amazing. I found one issue is that the paper quality I found to be a bit thin, but that was mainly towards the start of the book. As I was reading more, I guess maybe because I got used to it, the paper kind of just seemed to be a bit more normal. But for the other comic books that I was reading before, the paper in this just seemed super thin. I don't know if I've commonly complained about issue for this, or if it's just me, but that was literally the only complaint. In terms of the content, I liked all the characters that they introduced, and seeing Vader just rock everyone's shit was amazing. I'd say my favourite portion of the Omni was that part in the middle, which is covered in the Vader down trade, where he's looking for Luke, and there's like loads of other kind of characters on that planet, main characters from the Star Wars universe, and it definitely delivers for like a big spectacle towards the middle. I'd say the weakest part was that kind of final act, final arc after that, the bit with that queen on the planet. I'm not too sure about the names of the characters, but overall spectacular read. And the panel where Vader's like, I'm just surrounded by fear and dead men, dead soldiers. Just an awesome experience all around. This is definitely one that I recommend with no qualms. Very good. Has about 5 volumes worth of content in it. It's got the 4 trades from the run and all the stuff that's covered in Vader Down as well. So a few issues of Star Wars and then a few other stories kind of scattered throughout. But yeah, Darth Vader on me. Definite recommendation from me. I then ended the month off by going back and reading some manga, 2 of which was the first volumes that I own of anime that I've seen, and both of these just reminded me how good the anime counterparts are and how much I need to get more of the manga versions and read them in this format. First was the full colour version of Parasite. Typically, I'm not a massive fan of the way that colours are used in manga and full colour manga. I feel like it takes away a bit of the kind of depth, the shading and stuff, but in this instance, I'm quite happy with how the full colored versions turned out. I think it adds a layer to the series, and Parasite, content-wise, is amazing. It's dark, but it's also funny, and it just manages to find this cool balance while also having a super interesting narrative. And then very much a more traditional shonen, and that is the first omnibus or first 3 volumes of Fire Force. I prefer these Kodansha Omnis much more than the 3-in-1s that Viz used to do. I'm not even sure if they still do them, because by way of paper quality, it's much better. It genuinely feels like you're just reading the original volume in a bigger format. The only problem is that it still has an issue of the spine bending slightly. I'm not sure if you guys know any ways to kind of prevent that from happening, then just let me know. But so far it seemed like most people I've seen reading them, or when I see them in shops and stuff, they tend to just have that issue on the spine, and I'm not sure if there's a solution for that. It's just simply because the amount of pages that are packed into it. But from a quality standpoint of the actual paper quality and pages, it's definitely way better than the Viz ones, and still probably the way that I'd say to collect Kodansha series, that you're just mainly focused on reading and not really collecting too much, because it's just a much cheaper price as well than collecting them individually. Plus, I actually prefer the spines on these than I do on the regular Fire Force Omnis, or Fire Force individual volumes. So if you're interested in that, there's a couple other series that I know do this, like Attack on Titan, Noragami, 7 Deadly Sins. Yeah, so, but with Fire Force itself, amazing series. Action is done so well in it. Obviously, the thing that I'd say is the best with the anime, which you're not going to get in the manga, is that it's probably got the best sound design in any anime that I've seen, and obviously you don't get that in the manga, but still would say that this is a good way to experience it. But overall, the anime is probably the way to go if it ever does get that 3rd season. And the penultimate series that I ended January off with was reading the 5 volumes of Arjun, Demi-Human, that I had. I like this series as well. Very good. It kind of gave me Tokyo Ghoul vibes, with the way that while it does follow one main character, there are kind of good people and bad people on either side of being Arjun and being human. Although I'd say for the most part, most of the characters in the series are pretty evil and diabolical people. But I like to see the way that the main character kind of grows. He doesn't do this traditional, I'm going to save people now with my newfound kind of abilities, the way that most kind of manga protagonists do. So it's pretty cool to see that. I also just like the way that the systems in this manga work, the way that the powers work. It feels pretty unique. And the main villain, or who seems to be the main villain, this old man, just very cool, very enjoyable. I like his vibe. So yeah, overall kind of excited to read the rest of the series. I'll probably just wait until I've got the entire thing now, given it's only a 17-volume series. One other thing I want to say is that I didn't think I'd enjoy having these kind of smaller vertical volumes. Here's them in comparison to like a regular kind of manga volume size. But actually they were quite easy to read, and I never really felt like the dialogue was too small. So the only problem with the vertical ones is that for some reason they're more expensive than a traditional volume of Kodansha and Fierce, despite being smaller and not really feeling like they're better quality. So I don't know what the reason for that is. In fact, I'm sure the vertical is actually owned by Kodansha, so even more of a reason why I don't understand. But Arjun is a series, very good. Another recommendation. Bear in mind that it is, I don't know how to explain it, but it's both slow and fast at the same time. Like, it feels like there's always things happening, but the plot progresses at a reasonably slow pace. So, if that makes any sense, that's how I feel about the series of Arjun. I also really like the spines and the covers. It's a bit dark to see them here, but they look great. And the very last thing that I ended January off with was reading the remainder of what I had to read for what I owned of Knights of Sidonia, and that was the second half of Volume 2 and the entirety of Volume 3. Now, this is probably going to be the most controversial one on the list in terms of my opinion, as opposed to what people mainly think about the series, but I wasn't really too invested or too involved. Like, I didn't really love the series of Knights of Sidonia from what I've read so far. I'd say that it definitely started to pick up by the end of when I started reading. The end of Volume 3 in itself was definitely the best part of content that I found, but overall I wasn't super invested in the series. I expected, I don't know, something different. I know it was a mech series, but I think it just came down to personal preference. I'm not a massive fan of mech series, but I know that this was supposed to be kind of something that transcended the genre a little bit and felt a little bit different. And while it does, I found the story a little convoluted and a little hard to follow. I don't know if that's just me being stupid and not being able to follow the plot, but I think that if I maybe watch some sort of like explanation on what's happened so far, or just kind of maybe reread it to understand the plot a bit better, maybe I'd have a difference of opinion. But so far, just on first impressions and first reading through these first 3 volumes, I just found the narrative just a bit of a nothing burger. I don't know, but that's just my personal opinion. Obviously, a lot of people love Knights of Sidonia, so I'm clearly in the minority. But I'm interested to kind of finish this off and then check out another of his works, just to see if I feel that vibe across all of his series, or whether it was just this in particular that I didn't really enjoy. But overall, I'd say there is definitely a market for people to enjoy Knights of Sidonia. I'm just probably not part of that market at the minute. But like I said, I don't really like leaving stuff unfinished, especially stuff that I haven't really enjoyed so far, just so I know that it kind of keeps that throughout the entire series, or whether that's just kind of my early thoughts on it. Another thing I would say is that during the action segments, the art is quite hard to follow. Like, generally, the art is decent. I find a lot of the faces really similar. I know that's part of the series, but that also makes it kind of hard to know which characters are on screen at any given time or on page. But the art during the action segments I felt like was a bit difficult to follow. So maybe that kind of lent into my kind of the enjoyment factor of the series. So overall, I don't really know what to say about Knights of Sidonia other than maybe not for me, but I'd like to experience a bit more of it. Other than that, that was my January reads. Didn't expect the video to go on that long. Apologies for kind of all the cutting and stuff. I just was trying to figure out, with the difference in size between the manga volumes and the comics and even these like deluxes, I had to kind of constantly be moving around the setup a little bit just to be able to get it all in frame and stuff. Like I said in the last video, I'm still trying to work on a proper setup and figuring out the best way to get like good lighting and stuff here, because I know it hasn't been great for these. So I look forward to seeing you in the next one. I'll be doing February reads video soon, as well as a couple of like series reviews and stuff. So yeah, hopefully you guys will check those out, and please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and let me know if you've read any of this stuff down in the comments below. Come and counter my opinion on Knights of Sidonia, explain to me why it's good and so loved. Other than that, have a great day. Peace.